Hello everyone, we are back with the last video from the series Women on Death Row. Let's see what they did to deserve the capital punishment. Brenda E Andrew, 18 years on death row in the state of Oklahoma. Robert Andrew, Brenda's husband, was shot twice with a 16-gauge shotgun, once by Brenda and once by her lover James Pavitt. Brenda and Rob were high school sweethearts and had 2 children together. She was a stay-at-home mom and she taught Sunday school. Everything was going great in their family. By the time she hit 40, she developed what some would call a middle-age crisis, and that's when she and her husband decided to separate. Rob visited in November 2001 to pick up the kids, and then he went into the garage to assist Brenda with lighting the furnace pilot. Brenda dialed 911 a short while later. She had been hurt and her spouse had been fatally shot. They were ambushed in their garage, she said to the authorities, by 2 males with guns. Brenda had been having an affair with James Pavitt, a fellow church member and insurance salesman, according to the investigation conducted by the police shortly after the incident. Rob had just purchased a $1 million life insurance policy from James. Additionally, according to friends, Rob had started to suspect something was off with his wife and the insurance salesman and was afraid for his life. Brenda and James were gone when the police arrived to arrest them. The pair was apprehended at the Mexican border 3 months later. Michelle Sue Tharp, 22 years on death row in the state of Pennsylvania. Tharp was convicted for the murder of her 7-year-old daughter. After being starved for an extensive period of time, Tasha was found dead in her bed by her mother. Tharp admitted during her testimony that she hesitated to seek help out of fear that social services would remove her other children. Instead, she and her boyfriend, Douglas Bittinger, drove Tasha's body through a convoluted, lengthy list of errands in his car before discarding it in the woods, draped in a sheet and packed in trash bags. Investigators soon discovered that Tasha's body had been hidden in a bush in the West Virginia woods by Tharp and her partner, who had made up a tale that the girl had become lost in the mall. On April 19, 1998, police detained Tharp a day after she reported Tasha missing from a Steubenville, Ohio mall. Tasha was born prematurely and was suffering from a wide range of conditions, including genetic anomalies, issues with her lungs, blood, glands, nervous system, and also digestive system. When she was born, she weighed 2 pounds 5 ounces, and when she passed away, she weighed less than 12 pounds. She had gone days without eating, according to an autopsy. According to witnesses, Tharp deprived Tasha of food for days or more at a time. They said that she kept her daughter in her room at night in order to stop her from rummaging around the kitchen for any crumbs that might be accessible. Tasha would eat from the trash can and from the pet food bowl. Additionally, they claimed that she treated her son and 2 other girls way better than she treated Tasha. Krista Pike, 27 years on death row in the state of Tennessee. She was found guilty of torturing and killing her classmate Colleen Slammer when she was just 18 years old. Christa believed that Colleen was trying to steal her boyfriend, Tadderell Shipp. On January 12, 1995, Pike, Shipp, Slammer, and another friend of Pike's, Shadola Peterson, left their university dormitories to take a walk in the woods. Colleen was told that the purpose of this gathering was to reach an agreement and stop the constant fighting between them. What she didn't know was that both Pike and her boyfriend had developed an interest in the occult and satanic worship, and they had other intentions. Slammer was attacked by Pike and Shipp, while Peterson served as lookout. In later court testimony, it was stated that Slammer was taunted, beaten, and cut over the following 30 minutes, while also having a pentagram etched into her chest. Slammer was killed when Pike finally crushed her skull with a sizable piece of asphalt. A portion of Slammer's skull was retained by Pike, and the next day she started showing it around to other students. This is what led to the group's arrest less than 36 hours later. While Pike received the death penalty, her boyfriend got life in prison with the possibility of parole, and Peterson pled guilty, but she only got probation because she became an informant. It was discovered that Krista Pike had all 3 major common traits between murderers: a history of childhood abuse, a mental illness, and brain damage, most probably due to prenatal alcohol exposure. If the state carries out the punishment, she will be the first female to be executed in Tennessee in more than 200 years. Kimberly Cargill, 10 years on death row in the state of Texas. Cargill was found guilty of the murder of Cherry Walker, her children's babysitter, in 2010. Walker was supposed to testify in Cargill's child custody hearing, according to prosecutors. Cargill was charged with felony injury to a child in relation to her 4-year-old son, whom Walker was babysitting at the time. When Cargill was arrested, she posted bond the next day. According to court records, Cherry was summoned to testify in Cargill's custody hearing on June 23rd, but Cargill asked her babysitter to refuse and said she would hide her out at her house. Walker had a seizure and stopped breathing while driving with Cargill. Cargill then drove Walker to a county road and doused her in lighter fluid before setting fire to her clothes. Out of 4 sons, 3 of them testified that their mother, Kimberly Cargill, frequently choked, kicked, and hit them. They told jurors that they often feared for their lives. They also said that she changed the locks on their bedroom doors so she could lock them inside. Her ex-husbands had unpleasant stories about her as well. She had them wrongly arrested for assault, and she even set the apartment of one husband on fire. Cargill's sisters said that she was the devil, and her own mother testified that at one point she heard her daughter say she wanted to kill her. Well, if not even her family backed her up when she most needed them, I would say she was a pretty horrible human being. Linda Carty, 21 years on death row in the state of Texas. She received a death sentence for the 2001 kidnapping and murder of 25-year-old Joanna Rodriguez in order to steal Rodriguez's infant son. Carty, who has both American and British citizenship, and 3 co-defendants, Gerald Anderson, Chris Robinson, and Carlos Williams, broke into a home on May 16, 2001, and took a 25-year-old woman and her infant son hostage. The victim was put in the trunk of a car after being hogtied with duct tape and having a bag taped over her head. She suffocated to death, but the baby, who was just 3 days old, was discovered unhurt. 2 other victims were beaten, bound with duct tape, and left inside the house. When it was determined that Carty had informed individuals that she was expecting a child while not looking pregnant, investigators immediately began to suspect her. Police learned from one of the apartment complex's residents that she sat with Carty in a car, noticed the child's car seat inside, and was informed by Carty that she was pregnant. The witness found this surprising because Carty didn't look pregnant at the time. Carty told her ex-husband that she was pregnant with his child and she would give birth the next day, which coincided with the day Rodriguez was kidnapped. Carty's mother also testified and said her daughter never mentioned anything about being pregnant to her, and she did not seem like she would be having a baby. Carty has always said that she had been framed by drug dealers because of her work as an informant. However, a former cellmate of hers testified that Carty asked her to write a letter in which a man seemed to explain that another 2 men were actually setting her up. This made Carty's claims look unlikely, as it was clear she was fabricating proof. She could be the first British woman to be put to death since Ruth Ellis in 1955, and the first black British woman to be executed in more than a century. Brittany Holberg, 25 years on death row in the state of Texas. An 80-year-old white man was robbed and killed by Holberg inside his house. The guy was stabbed about 60 times and hit with a hammer. The weapons used were a fork, a butcher knife, a grapefruit knife, and a paring knife. A lamp pole had been shoved more than 5 inches down the victim's throat. Towery, the 80-year-old man, engaged Brittany Holberg, a prostitute, for a job. Towery was incorrectly depicted as an elderly guy who was innocent during the trial, according to defense attorney Catherine Brown Dodson, and Holberg acted in self-defense when Towery attacked her. According to testimony, the victim also struggled with drug use. Russell Towery, his son, testified that his father once drew a knife on him while having a rage. The victim's violent past with his ex-wife and kids was also shown as proof. This case sounds like it's a bit more in the gray area, as there is enough evidence to show that Holberg might have really acted in self-defense. Melissa Lucio, 14 years on death row in the state of Texas. Lucio has been convicted for the murder of her 2-year-old daughter Mariah. She claimed that the toddler had fallen down the stairs, but the medical exam also showed she had many bruises. She was missing hair that had been pulled by the roots. She had a broken arm that was in the early stages of healing, and there were bite marks on her back as well. While the fall supposedly happened 2 days prior, the paramedics were only called when Mariah was found not breathing and unresponsive. The autopsy also revealed she had bruising of the spinal cord, the lungs, and the kidneys. Lucio had 9 other children and she was expecting twins at the time of her conviction, babies that she had to give up for adoption after being incarcerated. Her other living children backed up the false story and said their mother was not the person she was portrayed to be. One of her boys said he actually saw Mariah fall down the stairs, and he was adamant about the fact that nobody told him that she fell. He saw that with his own eyes. Melissa Lucio is part of the Innocence Project. The Innocence Project is an organization that helps investigate and re-examine evidence from trials that have a chance to have ended with a wrongful conviction. For example, they helped free Malcolm Alexander, who spent 38 years in a prison for a crime he did not commit. If you want to know more about that case, I posted a video about it. You can go watch it and draw your own conclusions. Taylor Renee Parker, 2 months on death row in the state of Texas. Parker was found guilty of killing Reagan Simmons Hancock, who was pregnant, and abducting her unborn daughter Braxlyn Sage Hancock, who later died. Prior to cutting open Simmons Hancock's womb to abduct the unborn child, Parker stabbed the victim more than 100 times at the victim's home. Taylor Parker cut the victim's abdomen hip to hip while she was still alive. She was caught at a traffic stop soon after leaving the crime scene, and she told police officers that she gave birth on the side of the road. On the day of the murder, investigators testified that she had studied a number of videos on giving birth and caring for infants, including one on the medical examination of a baby delivered at 35 weeks. Parker had lied about being pregnant to her spouse and to others, and she had even thrown a gender reveal party. After undergoing a hysterectomy, she was unable to conceive. This case seems unreal, and unfortunately, it looks like there have been several such instances. I have a video up about the story of Savannah Greywind. It is truly heartbreaking to see how cruel some people can be. Darlie Routier, 26 years on death row in the state of Texas. Routier was found guilty of stabbing and murdering her 2 young sons, Damon, 5 years old, and Devon, 6 years old. Devon and Damon were killed by a huge kitchen knife, and Routier herself was stabbed in the arm and throat. Routier reported to the police that an unidentified intruder was responsible for the incident. The defense argued that there was no reason Routier would have killed her children, and that the case lacked a motive, a confession, or any witnesses. During the trial, the prosecution claimed that Routier's injuries were self-inflicted, that the crime scene had been staged, and that she killed her sons due to the family's financial difficulties. There are DNA tests pending results, as Routier has always maintained her innocence. I read many things about this case, and I think I will make a separate video on it, as there are several factors that might indicate the possibility of her telling the truth. Erica Yvonne Sheppard, 28 years on death row in the state of Texas. Shepard was found guilty of killing Marilyn Meager during a robbery. Marilyn Meager was taking clothing from her automobile into her apartment on June 13, 1993, when Erica Shepard and James Dickerson decided to steal her of her car. While Meager begged for her life, the couple tackled her inside her apartment and repeatedly sliced her throat with knives. She was then pounded in the head with a 10-pound statue after having her head covered in a plastic bag. In March 1995, Shepard received a death penalty verdict. James Dickerson also received the capital punishment, but he died from AIDS on death row before the execution could be carried out. Both Shepard and Dickerson were just 19 years old at the time of the crime, and Erica was already a mother of 3 children. She said that she was present when the crime took place and that she was guilty of not doing anything to stop it, but claims she was not the one to actually commit the murder. With this, my friends, we finished the series about all the women currently on death row in America. I knew about some of the cases, but what amazed me the most is the number of women who hurt their own children. There are 15 women on the list that murdered their biological or adopted children, and this is mind-blowing to me. On that note, see you on Monday with the case of Emani Moss, the 10-year-old little girl who was tortured and starved to death by her stepmother, Tiffany Moss. That was it for today, guys. I wish you an amazing and happy new year. May 2023 be an incredible year for all of us.